This is Dr. Vaishali, and I'm reading from the book Substance of Homeopathy, book written by Dr. Rajan Shankaran. Part 4, Philosophy, Chapter number 49, Picture Behind Picture. In essence, each of us is playing a role. We are like an actor, depending on what we think, what our capability and our feeling are, and also on what situation around is. We select a role and play it. It could be the role of king, a minister, a wife, or a servant. And this role we play is normal and healthy provided we do not feel compelled to play it and are unfit for any other role because of bad feeling about ourselves and the situation. This bad feeling are delusion or a disease. The role that we play not only involves our profession but also our social position and our dealing with problem and the people we encounter around us. So we so when we say king, he is a king everywhere. In the animal kingdom, the king is the lion. He walks and talks like a lion. The sheep is servant, and so he has to walk and talk of a sheep. In metals, aurum metallicum is the king, platinum is the queen, and ferrum metallicum is the soldier. In plants or music, you will also find the similarity. This similarity are useful because a person who behaves like a king will identify himself with the king and the lion and the gold. The way the man walk and talk and his manner of conduct is like a king, even when the situation is entirely different. Even if he is called upon to play the part of the soldier, he will behave like a king. A lion cannot behave like a sheep, even if the situation change. It is this fixity due to the delusion which is the disease. The difference between actor and the person who is diseased is that the actor knows consciously that he is playing a part and he is able to change his part or role quite easily, whereas someone under the delusion actually believes that he is the part, that he can only be this part and nothing else. This restricts his freedom to be in the moment and react to the situation appropriately. Imagine a story in which a person playing the particular role and has a particular characteristic or character that suits his life. But suddenly his life change and there is a completely new situation arise. And for example, imagine the simpleton who has been living a simple rustic life and whose character is innocent, gullible, pretentious, and unambitious. Suddenly he find out that he is a long-lasting prince and he is now the king. A few years later, you are taken into the palace with the grandeur and opulence and are given an audience with the king. The picture that you see on the outside is of a majesty, but after some talk, you notice a sudden foolish giggle, a sign that what is outside may not be the same as what is inside. The country bumpkin is the real one inside, and the picture outside is the situation. The tail of the wolf in the sheep's clothing is similar. You also observe the same phenomena in a person, say a Frenchman, who settled in India. He adopts Indian custom and even feels like an Indian, but it is likely that the strong connection with his mother country still dominate and is only covered. This man will answer affirmatively if we question him about his Indianness. He may talk in the Indian language and may have a better understanding of Indian philosophy than an Indian. But the question is this man really Indian? This phenomenon called picture behind picture occur when a child is born with state which is very different from that which is called for by the situation into which he or she is born. It will occur also when the person is placed in a situation far removed from the one to which his internal state is suited. In such circumstances, he cannot afford to play his original role, even though that is the one he still feels. He has to play the role that the situation demands, and yet at the same time, his original character will be revealed in some involuntary, unsuitable, inappropriate, or gesture. and word or act. It is these that are called peculiar symptom, and they indicate the real essence of the picture behind the picture. Once we become keenly observant of these peculiar things, those that do not fit into the existing situation of the patient, we get a hint of the underlying role or the picture. We still and we will slowly realize how or why the patient shows that one particular overlying picture in his situation. We will see, and it is the real pleasure to reveal that the overlying picture is exactly the picture or the role demanded by the real underlying main role in that new situation. For example, case example, a young woman, age of 24, came to the clinic with a mainly emotional problem. She had studied accountancy and had a lecturer with whom she became a friendly. After passing out of college, she was invited to join the accounting firm of this same lecturer, and she found that the working with him was quite different story from being as a student, and he was quite rude and harsh, and this was not the fun there and had been in a college. I suspect that he was half in love with her, and but due to something in his nature he could only express it as a admonition. This woman also had some feeling for him and was tremendously hurt by his rudeness. She seems to be almost broken by the whole things. When she came to the clinic, she could hardly talk, crying all the time, sobbing, sighing, and seeking help. In my clinic at this time was a colleague who was quite positive that this was a clear case of ignatia. I could see her point of view, but one thing about this case was the questions as to what she should do. A question that seems to me to be asked more out of fright than grief. It was a new and frightening situation for her. Sexual feelings were there as well as those of love, disappointment, and grief. She was not yet prepared to handle them and was very frightened. And therefore, even though the existing situation was of a hurt and disappointment, this was situational, and the real person inside was a vulnerable child, sudden faced with a frightening new and hard reality. A picture that to me fitted the image of the child suddenly exposed to the immense danger, means stamonium. So I took the rubric fear darkness, fear stranger, fear alone, clinging, delirium crying for help. In this case, we can see that the apparent ignition-like features have been brought up in this particular situation, and this is what was demanded by her underlying real state of stamonium. If we discount the situation features like signing, sobbing, hurt, etc., and see the peculiarity, we see the helplessness, frightened child seeking help and protection. The picture was of a stamonium. Remedy now under a level of remedy example. Take the Chlamydia calcea carbonica. The main theme is fear and facing the roughness of the world, or the feeling of being weak to face the cruelty of the world. So we have the rubric delusion that he is weak, delusion that he is small as the main delusions taken. So calcea tries to build a protective wall to defend around him so he is safe, secure, and covered like the developing embryo within the egg. The constant endeavor of calcea carbonica is to build the protection wall and the protective wall, and the constant feeling is of a smallness and weakness. The feeling is constant whatever be the expression of calcea card. But what will vary is the way he built his wall and what kind of wall he chosen to build. Thus, this will depend on which material is available. Some need not build the wall at all because the wall is already built, and they just have to thrive within. And like for example, a girl in India completely protected by her parents and maybe the only girl in the family, wealthy parents. What does she have to do? She is completely protected, indolent, and bit VP, sensitive to reprimand. Symptoms that may not look like a calcarea or may not be clear. But what is clear is that she has to do nothing about it. and then she is married off into a equally protected house and does nothing. The very fact the very fact that she does nothing indicate the remedy. But if her remedy was Calcea carbonica and the situation was different, for example, her mother is dead and her father is an alcoholic who comes home and beats her up, she gets nervous, is edgy, tense, always something will happen, like features. And features that again do not remind you of Calcea, but maybe there is toxicodendron or stramonium, but these are not her feature at all in reality. Imagine if she was placed in the good house, what would happen? Would these symptoms persist? Or imagine her in the another situation in her life, in school for instance, and where this nervousness and ageness is not manifested at all, and especially when she comes to the doctor, she weeps before him and asks for the protection. This gives a clue about the underlying picture and the remedy. But when such a girl comes to a doctor, it will be different from the girl of a protective family. This girl who comes from an unprotected family and seeks the support and reassure of the doctor could easily break down and cry. So you have narrating her a complaint like in Calcea carbonica, third grade of the Calcea symptom. But if we just look at the patient weeping narrating her complaint, we would not get a Calcea at all. We would get a pulsatilla, and she seems to be seeking consolation. But then, what about the nervousness and edginess when she is at home? The common link between these two, rust toxicodendron, and when she is in home, the common link between these two, rust toxicodendron and pulsatilla state in the patient, is the feeling of insecurity and the need to build a protective wall, which is the feeling of Calcea carbonica. But the two former state are the expression of this Calcea carbonica feeling in the particular situation. Take a totally different situation in the same girl. She is getting older. Her parents are older. She does not have any brother and sister or close relative, and she now has to find a husband and she is not getting one. What will you see? Something change. She become more extroverted, more talkative, a bit shamelessness, and remind us strongly of the house MS with the rubric. Delirium preparing for wedding. But the question is, why is she preparing for wedding? What does the wedding means to her? In the case of man, Calcea may manifest in a different way. For him, security cannot come from the family or from the physician or from the wedding. From a wedding, maybe, but there, here, what kind of woman is he going to choose? The strong one, a protective one. He is looking for such a one. He may seek to create around him the protective wall of the group or the organization. The organizations become for him the shell inside which he feels secure and outside of which, even to put his foot, he is scared. So he may become the creator of the organization, or he may join and become a faithful fanatic of the organization and get completely inside of it and refusing to get out. He may look like a fanatic or a leader or organizer, again depending upon whether he finds such organizations or has to create one for himself. Here he may look like a thuja or lycopodium. So in different situations, the same core or the feeling has varied expression. Each may fool us into the believing that they are the real thing, but inside is different. We have to treat what is inside and not what is outside, just as the clothes are made to fit the person. So the external is one which properly covered, the internal is a given internal is in a given situation, but it is not the cloth that we have to treat. Given situations, we have to ask ourselves what kind of person would react or act in this manner in this situation. We have to look for the hidden motivation for his action, what he gets out of acting in that particular way, in that particular situation, and then we will find out that what he desire may be different from what we think he desire and get out of that situation.